Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'd like to say that I'll be sharing my time with the member for Beaches East York. It is with great pleasure that I rise today to give my first speech in the House. Thank you.
Bien sûr, comme plusieurs.
As many have done, I would like to also take this opportunity to thank those who have helped me and supported me, my family, of course, and some members of my family even campaigned for me outside of my riding, and they were really with me 100%. People who believed in change and who did not get the impression this year that their vote would not change things, because in Pierrefonds-Dollard, the same party had been there for a very long time, and they believed in us this year, and they thought this year that each vote could make a difference in Pierrefonds-Dollard. So thank you to all the groups, community organization groups that have welcomed me, the CEGEP, and it's not true that young people don't get involved in politics. We had very animated discussions with people of all ages, all groups, cultural groups in the riding.
Thank you so much. Also, to those who had heated political debate with their families in Quebec, their relatives. I think that what happened in Quebec on election night was remarkable, and it's great to see the participation and the turnout. Last, I would like to thank the members, or rather the residents of the Pierrefonds-Dollard riding, and also to Jack Layton and the whole NDP team. Thank you for their trust, and also thank you for the inspiration that they represent for me, and thank you very much to Vero, who's waiting until her youngest is in grade 2 before going back to work, and given that she is a single mother, she has really made an unbelievable effort, and she is going back to school. Thank you very much to André, the young man who is 72 years old, who heads his senior social group. He puts all his energy into it, and he also told me that he was happy to still be able to live in his own home, to be mobile enough to remain involved in his community, and that he was scared of the day when he would need to rely on our healthcare system. Thank you to Samina, who looks after her ill mother, and for many years is hoping that someone from her family will be able to come and join her in Quebec to help give care to her family. So thank you to all those people who told me their stories and who shared their concerns and told me about their priorities. It is thanks to them that I will be motivated every day, day after day, to be present here and to speak on their behalf. To the people of Pierrefonds, L'Île Bizarre, Dollard-des-Ormeaux, and Roxborough, you will not be disappointed. I will work seriously with a great deal of dedication to carry out the mandate that you entrusted in me on May 2nd, and I will make all your voices heard here in Ottawa. Today, I am at the outset, I'm asking the government to do more to lift seniors out of poverty. This year, in February 2011, the government sat down with the National Seniors Council to allow seniors to speak out on the issues that concern them. They thought it would be a good way to work with people in the community to find solutions to the concerns of seniors. And yet the measures set out in the budget are far from adequate. In other words, on the one hand, the government is making things look good, so it looks good, and is giving the illusion that it takes seniors' well-being to heart. But on the other hand, through the measures it is putting in place, it does not show any genuine interest in working for the welfare of seniors. The National Seniors Council indeed is right in feeling betrayed, manipulated, and insulted. And yet, the recommendations of this council are clear. After having consulted the population and conducted research, it has suggested to the government a number of sectors where it should intervene to significantly help low-income seniors. For example, it should tackle the impacts of the cost of living on low-income seniors, especially with regard to the price of energy and food. Those are proposals that I am quoting from the National Seniors Council. The government should offer more affordable and accessible housing. It should help more seniors to remain independent. And it should ensure access to healthcare services and medical supplies that are needed by low-income seniors without affecting their income. Now, we can see in these sectors that were suggested by the National Council issues that are important for the NTB. Throughout our campaign, we have defended the idea of reducing heating costs. We espouse the idea of fostering home care and the putting in place of multi-generational homes. We talked about increasing the number of affordable and accessible housing units. Now, those are issues that we are defending, but unfortunately, they are not defended by all parties, because the government, for its part, intends to invest $300 million to enhance the income of seniors, but taken out of context, I'm thinking of Vero, André, Salmina, the people in my riding. Now, out of context, that may seem like an astronomical amount. And the government boasts about this measure as if it was a very generous gift. And yet appearances can be deceiving, because what it is promising is not actually very generous. Let's look at these $300 million from another perspective. 1/3 of seniors who are living in poverty will benefit or will be eligible for this top-up benefit. That means that 2/3 of people age 65 and over who live in poverty will not receive assistance. I don't know whether you spoke to the same people I spoke to during the campaign, but I often heard people ask me what it would change in their everyday lives. I met with people who were disillusioned, who were disengaged from politics because they thought that no matter who they voted for, it wouldn't make any real impact on their everyday lives, and that with that measure, the government is telling them they're right. You will not necessarily see any change in your income if you are a senior living in poverty. Another way of looking at this is to think of something. The maximum that the seniors who are the most destitute is that they will receive some $50 per month, which is not even $2 per day. And these are the seniors who are the most affected by poverty. So is it reassuring to think that these seniors will be able to have enough money to drink 1 coffee per day? I'm not. How can the government be proud of this measure? Who on the government side is prepared to go and visit with these people, these seniors who live in poverty, and tell them that the most they can hope for is $1.64 per day? I worked for a community organization that tries to help seniors improve their quality of lives. And I could maybe organize meetings with them, give them phone numbers so that they have the opportunity for the government to tell the seniors what they're going to do for them. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be comfortable in the government's place having to announce that kind of things. So in short, this year, or rather according to NDP calculations, $700 million would be needed to invest each year to lift all seniors out of poverty. So that once again may seem to be an astronomical amount, but think of the millions of dollars that are given to profitable corporations and banks. The government says that it needs to cut its spending, and it talks about reaching zero deficit, but it is not a question necessarily of spending more, but of spending differently and investing money in places where it can really make a difference to people. So our proposal today would significantly reduce poverty among among seniors, and I hope that that is something that will resonate with you. Questions and comments?
For Bonavista Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague, welcome her to the House of Commons. I think that's probably one of the finest speeches I've heard since I've been here, and I want to congratulate her because it was very heartfelt, and she certainly has politics in the grasp because she talked about stories and how these policies affect people, and that's how we debate in this House. At least that's the way I like to debate. She also has a nice riding. I used to live there. I lived there in 1995, and I got to vote in the Quebec referendum there. I voted no, for the record. She brought up a good point about the utilities measures and heating costs. She also brought up some of the home care, which is a major issue in my particular area, and much like hers, when it comes to people who are seniors impoverished. Not just home care, but lately we've been besieged with requests for help because of catastrophic drug coverage. Drug coverage right now is very little. Drug costs are much, much higher. Perhaps she'd like to tell us some stories in her riding as well, to just how big an effect that health is, especially when it comes to catastrophic drug coverage. Thank you.
The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Merci beaucoup.
I would like to thank my colleague very much for his question. Yes, indeed, in Pierrefonds-Dollard, there is indeed an evident sense that there is a lack of proper health care. We see the lineups at the social services and health centers and at the hospitals, and when my colleague talked about drug coverage, I thought about the mother in my riding who has to defend herself and who needs medication because she has learned that she has cancer. She has to fight for her daughter. There are all things that we would think that this assistance would be provided by the government, but people still have to fight to get these basic services to have a proper quality of life, and yet they are entitled to such a thing in a country like Canada. Questions and comments?
For Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too want to thank my colleague for her intervention, and say that in my experience in Dartmouth, in my riding in Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, and other communities throughout Nova Scotia, it's those organizations and the volunteers that work to support seniors that, frankly, keep many of our seniors going from day to day. Dealing with the pressure, with the strains, with the demands as a result of living in poverty, it gets to be an incredible issue of capacity for many seniors. I know that again in Dartmouth we've got a couple of groups, Campbell's Social Club, for example, in Cole Harbour that provides subsidized meals. Basically, the volunteers go out and they buy the food, they make the lunches, and then they provide a wholesome lunch for the seniors. And I wanted to ask my colleague if she could expand a bit on her experience in her community and working with those organizations that assist seniors.
The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. I would like to thank my colleague for giving me the opportunity to draw on my experience on the ground to talk about what is done at the community level for seniors. In Pierrefonds-Dollard, there are a great many groups or associations. So it is not just about helping seniors, but they are seniors themselves who band together to create their own social networks, to provide mutual support among themselves, and to break the cycle of isolation. So yes, these individuals can take themselves in hand if they are given the resources to do so, they can improve their lives and society considerably. Thanks to volunteers who do unbelievable work, but these people are burnt out. They can't do everything alone. They need us, and we are there for them. We simply have to remember that.
Member Pierrefonds-Dollard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague just mentioned wages, but my colleague also talked about working conditions. I spoke with the union reps in my riding yesterday, and there's 1,000% increase in working accidents since their job description has changed because they have to do many other things besides carrying their envelopes. These working accidents could increase even more with the new conditions imposed by Post Canada, so the employees are right in wanting to negotiate their working conditions. I'll ask my colleagues, as the MPs across the way pretend that we're against the service resuming, or we're against this obstacle that's putting before their negotiations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's obvious that the workers have legitimate channels for claiming their rights and for claiming reasonable wages, and the government should stop the lockout and let the people go back to work. And when I speak about to the young in my riding, they say they are worried for their future because this bill is a very dangerous precedent. We have the impression that we're going to a race to the bottom. So this
During debate, the Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I would like to wish all of the people in Île Bizarre Pierrefonds a very happy national holiday. I would like to have been with them this evening to celebrate Saint Jean-Baptiste Day at Île Bizarre, but it won't be the situation this year. Mr. Speaker, many of my colleagues have expressed their sadness at not being able to be in their ridings today, and the members opposite said that it was their choice. Unfortunately, this accusation, this argument, is a distortment of reality. Since the beginning of this debate, we've heard many unfair allegations made by the Conservatives. For example, we are causing an economic crisis, but in fact, it's the government that imposed the lockout. The Minister of Labour, the Minister of Labour said on June 15th that she had received very few complaints with regards to the rotating strike. Another example, another colleague to my right pointed out the concern for the viability of Canada Post, but this colleague knows that that Canada Post had revenues of more than $280 million. So this is money that's being invested to modernize infrastructure, equipment, and that creates jobs. We have excellent service with Canada Post. We have some of the least expensive stamps in the world. Another empty argument, Mr. Speaker. The government has attacked the legitimacy of the union. We've heard a great deal about that today. Who is surprised that the Conservatives is taking advantage of this situation to really tarnish the workers' organizations? The member for Hochelaga, my colleague, said that the members said that they were in support of the negotiating or bargaining process. It seems to me that my colleagues opposite, who says that this 40% support means that they have a clear and strong mandate. But we're talking about a very high percentage of postal workers who are in favor of the negotiating process. Conservatives are hiding behind the allegations made by worried citizens, all very touching. But what about those citizens who are really supportive of postal workers? You'd be surprised to find out, Mr. Speaker, but there are people, in fact, who are very supportive of these workers. There are people who are bringing food and coffee to the employees who are striking, and there are worried workers who are waiting to see the outcome of this conflict, to see how the government is going to respond the next time they have to negotiate or bargain. Nevertheless, I am sensitive to the fact that many people are suffering from the lack of postal services. But understand me clearly, Mr. Speaker. We are fighting today for workers, the workers of Canada Post, and all those who are afraid when it comes to their future working conditions. We also do understand the concerns of private citizens, the people waiting for checks, business owners. We understand the problems. That leads me to talk about another false debate that we often hear on the Conservative side. They accuse us, they are saying that we are prolonging the conflict and that we're not working in the interest of citizens. That's a false argument, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear, the NDP is hoping that postal services will be reinstated just as much as the Conservatives do. Nobody wants a work stoppage of postal service. Nobody wants this. What we are denouncing today is what's so intolerable for us. It's the way that the Conservatives have created this whole dispute or conflict. We are against this back-to-work legislation, not against the reinstatement of postal service, but against the working conditions that are being imposed on the workers. We are against the way that the government rejects the employer's right to negotiate or bargain. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, if I could summarize, the members opposite said that this is a situation that nobody wants to see. That's true. We agree with that. So let's stop all this false debate and let's continue with the bargaining process now.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
So very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for her speech. You know, there's quite a bit of inconsistency in the NDP's argument. On one side, they say the government should play no role and that we should allow the two sides to bargain. On the other side, they accuse the government of somehow being involved in the lockout. So on one side, we're not supposed to be involved, and then they say we are involved, and then they're all over the road on it, Mr. Speaker. But one thing seems very, very clear to me. If we're going to call this a lockout, my honourable colleague from Tobique-Mactaquac said some time ago that, in fact, the workers themselves are locked out by their union. They're locked out from having the opportunity to have their say on the most recent contract offer that was made by Canada Post. And I don't understand why. I've got letters from postal workers that are, I've got, yes, the farmers, Wayne. Yes, absolutely, the farmers. I hear the member from, from LPEC shouting, Mr. Speaker. But what I want to ask this member very succinctly is, I have a number of letters from postal workers that are experiencing hardship in my riding that want the opportunity to vote on Canada Post's most recent contract offer. Would this member join me in calling on CUPW to allow its members to vote on Canada Post's offer? It makes this bill redundant.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to thank my colleague who has given us further evidence that the arguments put forward by the Conservative government is false. I heard, and I'm certain that the interpretation is excellent, that the lockout was imposed by the union, and this is completely false, distorted, unfortunately. Yes, there is a lockout, But this was not imposed by the union. The union has a strong mandate from their members, and it's up to us to respect their rights and let them bargain and negotiate their collective agreement.
Halifax West.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciated the colleague given by my honourable colleague. A few minutes ago, I asked her colleague from Thunder Bay Rainy River a question. I mentioned that we could perhaps have an agreement if the government could offer the same thing that Canada Post had offered during the last offer. Is that the position of the NDP still? Could you confirm that? And secondly, I hope that we will hear some comments from the government side with respect to this offer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for having pointed out that with this bill on the resumption of postal services, that there is, in fact, a suggestion to give employees a lower salary, lower than what was negotiated. That's something that we find is quite intolerable, and it's an example that shows how the government wants to intervene in the bargaining process. This is something is totally reprehensible. We would like workers to have the right to bargain, and not only workers from Canada Post, but all workers, all organized workers. Thank you.
Reprise du débat.